Hello and welcome to the interview. With us is a very special guest today, Fawzia Koofi, Vice President of the National Assembly of Afghanistan, also a Member of Parliament and a very prominent women's rights activist. She's also a member of Afghanistan's peace negotiation team with the Taliban. Fawzia Koofi, welcome to WION.
Thank you.
I want to start with what's happening in your country, a spiral of violence. In the latest, we've seen 3 women journalists being killed. What do you make of this new trend in Afghanistan?
Well, unfortunately, Afghanistan has been in war for 40 years, over 4 decades now, and an active war. And some of us, we have grown up in war, and we lose life in war. Women of Afghanistan have been the main victim of both Taliban time and also the current active war. Unfortunately, what happens in the country in terms of the targeted killing, it's a no one's responsibility show. At the end of the day, no one takes responsibility for what happens. I think it's because of the fear these extremist groups have from the strength and the power of civil society and women rights activists and even the journalists. These are values that the extreme groups are against it. So therefore, by silencing the woman, by silencing the journalists, they think they can get more power, which is a very wrong perception, because I think Afghanistan now is in a transformation of generation. And by silencing a generation, you cannot stop the next generation. And exactly for the same reason that we really have to give an importance to the peace process, a priority and a focus that will hopefully result peace and stability in Afghanistan and in larger context in the region.
Right, the peace process has been on, you've been a part of it, the peace talks have been on, but there seems to be no peace on the ground. Why this contradiction?
Well, our hope was that after the Doha agreement between Taliban and Americans, which the Taliban have committed themselves to reduction of violence, but unfortunately, since the deal has been signed, there has been no reduction in violence, and in contrary, we have seen a new method in killing of people, which is the targeted assassination. I think what the Taliban or those who are engaged in behind these kind of target killing, what they want is to get more by terrorizing the society, to get more in the negotiation table, which is a wrong perception, because the country has been in war for very long. The people really want to stop this in order to trust the process. So our appeal since the talks started to the Taliban and to the other side of the negotiation team has been to agree on a ceasefire, even if it's a temporary ceasefire for a few months, so that the people trust the process and we are able to build on this process and agree on a political settlement. But I think what the other side wants is to gain more in the negotiation table by creating more violence.
The very fact that they are at the negotiating table legitimizes them, and they're part of an internationally brokered peace process. Despite the dialogue, as you said, there's been a flare-up in violence. At least 257 members of pro-government forces and 66 civilians were killed in Afghanistan in just the last month, in the month of February, with the Taliban being blamed for many of these attacks. Do you believe that these negotiations are only emboldening the Taliban in Afghanistan?
We have no other option, Palki, than to continue really the talks to achieve a durable peace, because only agreeing politically with Taliban or signing a deal on a political level will not result in sustainable peace. We need to negotiate every aspect of it, agree on not only political peace, but also on a social cohesion, on a social peace, because the previous peace deals in Afghanistan, the previous talks with different groups between Mujahideen, for instance, and the Soviet Union in the past, and the government backed by Soviet Union, because there was no social peace building and efforts to cohesion and coexistence, it fall apart. And therefore, I think we have to really talk, because there is no option, and agree. We have to be genuine. The point is, so far, Taliban, since the beginning of the negotiation in September, did not really demonstrate sincerity in terms of putting their time and their efforts to agree. Our appeal to them and our request since the second round of the talks started last week has been, let's get into the main points for discussions. Let's get to the main topics. And when I speak about peace, it's not just political agreement, but also in a rather bigger context, stability in the region, because Afghanistan can be a potential economical hub connecting Central and South Asia, and the security and stability in Afghanistan will benefit in large the region, actually. So therefore, I hope that the regional countries will use their leverage to bring Taliban to the negotiation, because the sooner we agree on a political settlement, the better to stop battlefield and active war in Afghanistan.
Your own personal story, Fawzia, is very, very inspiring. You've survived 2 assassination attempts, and the last one was only last year when the negotiations with the Taliban had begun. And yet you are a part of the Afghanistan government's negotiation team. What is it like to negotiate peace with the people who tried to kill you? And what is it like to be the only woman sometimes in the room carrying forward these negotiations?
It is extremely challenging job for any woman. To negotiate with an extreme military group. I think anywhere in the world, that's not a pleasant job, I would say. And for some of us who have been victim of this war, looking at people who not only targeted you individually, but killed so many people in front of your eyes, took so many lives, that you loved them, you had connection with them, you knew them, they were talents, they could have been a future leader in Afghanistan on many areas. So that is frustrating, but in the meantime, I think it sometimes also gave me power, because I feel like with a group that only 20 years back would not recognize women as a human being with equal rights, they now negotiate, and we negotiate business, real business. And we try to demonstrate power, not only and logic, not only just be there in the table, but meaningful participation. So to summarize, I think it's a very stressful and difficult task, what we do, but exactly for the same reasons that no more bloodshed in Afghanistan, no more victim of war. We really want to end this, and we're here for the same reason, and that is something that keeps me individually going.
Right. The last time the Taliban was in power, it was a different world and a different Afghanistan. Now they're looking at some sort of a political role, some say. Do you believe that this group is in tune with the way Afghan people in general have changed, and Afghan women and their aspirations have changed over the last 2 decades?
Well, actually, they have to take bold steps to demonstrate to the people that they have changed. People of Afghanistan, especially the new generation, the generation of post-2001, it's a generation of transformation. And this is something that the Taliban must correlate with and must agree on a coexistence, because just having a political view does not give you all the legitimacy to kill the people. And in fact, this war is not a jihad as they claim, because after the Doha agreement last year with Americans, they have committed not to kill any foreign troops in Afghanistan. So why they're continuously killing their own people? And therefore, for us, it's not a jihad. It's not a holy war. It's unfortunately a war over power. And therefore, I think they have to really agree on a coexistence life. They have to agree that the new Afghanistan will not go back. We really have to use the model of other Muslim countries in the region, and also in a far region in Asia. Like, for instance, look at Malaysia, look at Indonesia, how they could manage to learn to coexistence. So therefore, I think the Taliban must learn to live with the new Afghanistan. This is something that they have not really accommodated in their mind and in their ideology yet.
What is the biggest stumbling block in the negotiations as far as women's rights are concerned?
this is the only negotiation where women's rights will be discussed. And when Taliban, actually presented their draft agenda, they clearly put discussion on women's Islamic rights and also women's traditional rights. Women's traditional right is not something we can discuss because every part of the country has their own tradition. But women Islamic rights, we are asking women Islamic rights, but of course Taliban interpretation of Islamic rights is so different from the rest of the country. So therefore, I think this is going to be women's rights will be a major issue for discussion. What we hope is that we will be able to preserve the liberties and rights of people in Afghanistan as a result of this peace deal.
Last month, in a virtual interaction with Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani had said, and I'm quoting here, nationalism should be an act of solidarity and pride in our common humanity and not sponsorship of groups and tendencies that provide for conflicts. There was a reference to Pakistan. Do you think that Islamabad has acted in good faith in the ongoing peace negotiations?
I think they should, because as I said before, it's not just a conflict that takes lives. It's a conflict that takes opportunities from us and in larger context, the region. So therefore, I think genuine efforts by the neighboring countries of Afghanistan can certainly expedite the process in a manner that will result in sustainable peace.
Do you believe that Pakistan is doing all of this?
We really want them to get engaged because, as I said before, it's not only about the lives that are lost in Afghanistan. Pakistan is also not safe from all these military extremism and their economy. So it's in the interest of the region that they should actually genuinely support the peace process without any hidden agenda.
Over the weekend, the Biden administration announced that it will be sending negotiators to West Asia to restore peace talks with the Taliban. As America resumes this dialogue, what are your expectations from President Joe Biden?
Well, they have reviewed the process, the agreement. I think my expectation is that they will continue to support the peace agreement that will result peace, with preservation of the gains that Americans and Afghans have invested blood and treasure over the past 20 years, because this peace should actually have a human face. The agreement between the Taliban and the United States signed last year in February, there was no aspect of human to it. Human rights, women's rights, all the achievements and gains that people of Afghanistan have achieved with our international partners over the past 20 years. So what I hope as a woman and as somebody who spent all my life in the country is that they gave some more human face to this agreement. It's not just silencing the gun. Peace is not silencing the gun. Peace is also accepting the diversity, living with the diversity. So I'm hoping that with new administration in the U.S., especially having a woman as vice president, Kamala Harris, that there will be more emphasis on protecting the rights and gains in the process. In the meantime, we know that the 31st April withdrawal of troops is not a realistic deadline, because the agreement that the Americans and Taliban signed was just about figures and numbers. We want this to be about content and condition and what is actually happening on the ground in Afghanistan.
Recently, India also dispatched about 500,000 doses of Wuhan virus vaccines to Afghanistan. Now, India's relationship with Afghanistan is broadly based on rebuilding efforts. But in the past, the United States has called on India to play a bigger role in the peace negotiations. What role, according to you, can New Delhi have in this dialogue?
Well, our relationship with India is not just government to government, but deeply rooted people to people relationship. So we expect India to play an important and more active role in terms of ensuring that the peace process in Afghanistan is in the interest of the Afghans in first hand, but also in the region. It is not in the interest of a specific group, specific country, or specific party, but in bigger role ensuring that there is a balance in terms of the interest, a balance in terms of the the common values. So we hope that India really get engaged in this process.
You spoke about the American withdrawal, and you said the deadline is not realistic. Whenever that happens, there will be a time when the American troops will withdraw, and there's a fear that that will leave a void in Afghanistan that may encourage China to step in. And this has become a reason for worry for many experts, considering Beijing's close ties with Pakistan as well. As one of the peace negotiators, how do you see China's involvement in the process?
You see, Palki, if these countries in the region do not really contribute positively today or tomorrow, they can become a burden. So therefore, I hope that we share a border with China as well. So I hope that China will and India and Russia and Iran and Pakistan, all countries in the region, will look at the peace process, first of all, as a process that will substitute the war meaningfully and support it and support it genuinely with all the efforts. Because you're right. If Americans withdraw without agreeing on a peace deal, the concern is that we will face the same circumstances and experience that we have faced in 1992 when the Russians withdrew from Afghanistan. Civil war in every village of Afghanistan being divided. In order to avoid that, because that will not benefit anybody, and above all, that will not benefit the people of Afghanistan. In order to avoid that, I hope that the regional countries, you mentioned China, will use their leverage over countries that they have influenced to pressurize them to become positive contributors of this process, so to say.
Right, and I keep coming back to your own story. As I said, it's very inspiring, Fawzia, and I want you to tell our viewers more about your journey to the parliament in Afghanistan. It's been a remarkable tale, really. And I've read that as a newborn, the 19th out of 23 children in your family, your mother left you out in the sun to die. Is that true?
Well, it's a very long story. And actually, I have written a book about my story. It's a memoir. So you have one part of it in your hand. Yeah, my mother has gone through so much as a woman in a traditional society, and like my mother, many women still unfortunately experience, the burden of wrong aspects of tradition and war, because most of these our lives, what we experience, is also a product of war. So she suffered so much that she didn't want another girl to suffer as much as she suffered. So when I was born, and of course, then delivery was not in the hospital, it was in the home, and there was no medical facilities. I was born at home, and everybody was busy with my mother, and I was left out in the sun. By the time my mother was okay, I already had sunburns in my face. But my mother actually substituted that first day with her love and affection forever, and I was always her favorite daughter.
I'm sure you were. What inspired you to become one of the first female members of parliament in Afghanistan, in a country like Afghanistan especially?
Well, I come from a political family. My father was a member of parliament. He was killed also on a peace mission. He gathered a lot of people to come to talk to Mujahideen, jihadi groups then, to convince them not to fight, and he was killed on the way, so on a peace mission, basically. I come from a political family. Politics probably is in my gene, but after the collapse of Taliban in 2001, what I have experienced as a woman during Taliban, the injustice, the discrimination that I have experienced as a woman, when they put my husband in jail, for instance, when I was going from one office to the other to help my husband, or even in the streets, I could see that women are being whipped for wearing a wrong color of clothes, which was not to the standard of Taliban. They were whipped on the street. They were being, brutally hit. And all of that actually gave me more determination, I would say, to change something, because I knew that whatever was going on around me was wrong. And that was the reason, after the fall of Taliban, that I decided to come to politics, because I thought that, politics is something that you can actually change things. And therefore, when I was elected as first woman deputy speaker of parliament in our history in 2005, it was not enough for me, because I always think that to get to the office is not enough. You really have to change. You really have to deliver. And so therefore my struggle did not start when I was elected. My struggle started when I wanted to change, because I actually, that gave a lot of people a discomfort zone, because a lot of men were sitting in a comfort zone. They didn't even think that, someday they will have to change their position. When they started, being pushed to change their position, then they started giving a hard time to us in return. But life goes on. I mean, that's how we choose.
It's been 16 years. How much do you think you've been able to accomplish of what you set out to do?
A lot. Working on women and human rights is like, or on these social changes, like you always put your forehead in a stone and you face a stone and then you come back and you start again. It is not an easy job. It's not a tangible result. It's not a school you built and you see the result tomorrow. We have now laws that protect women from violence, and these were things that were not regarded as taboos or prohibited only 20 years back. It was regarded as part of women's life and normal. So we have now laws that protect women political participation, and even the fact that we have more women in the peace negotiation is the result of the collective efforts of women in Afghanistan and lobby that we have actually started. So long way, and that's why I think women of Afghanistan today are unavoidable. Nobody can avoid them. No, and Taliban, I think, have must understand that from these negotiations, I think they know that we cannot be avoided.
In 2012, you campaigned for the presidency of Afghanistan. Are you going to make another bid?
Why not?
The world will celebrate International Women's Day. What does this mean for the women of Afghanistan? Do they see this with a sense of cynicism, or is there hope? How do they feel about events like these?
A lot of concerns, and valid concerns, as we celebrate International Women's Day in Afghanistan, because people are worried about the return of a government which denied the 55% of the population's rights, which are women. But in the meantime, the resilience of women in Afghanistan, the strength, the passion that they have demonstrated over the period of war and, horrible life, demonstrate that women of Afghanistan will never give up.
Fawzia Koofi, it was a pleasure speaking to you. More power to you. May you keep inspiring young girls, not just in Afghanistan, but the world over.
Thank you.